ya hoy 11, ya estamos a 11 de junio, se cumple otro aniversario de la muerte de ébola, así como el 19 había sido el del nacimiento de ébola, hoy es el aniversario de la muerte de ébola del año 1974 y podemos ver algunas de sus citas más importantes y un poco lo que había desarrollado como pensamiento político para cerrar el directo.
My principles are only those that, before the French Revolution, every well-born person considered sane and normal.
Básicamente, mis principios son aquellos que antes de la Revolución Francesa cada persona bien nacida consideraba sanos y normales. Vamos a ver ahora un poco de lo que decía Ébola respecto al Estado. Es decir, qué decía respecto a la forma política, porque también tiene que ver con algunas claves que habíamos visto conceptualmente en la clase de la semana pasada.
In this video, we're going to talk about Julius Evola's principles of political theory. So what does he mean by the true state? What for him should a true state embody? Well, the first point is that it must be anti-democratic and anti-socialistic. Okay, Evola is against all forms of democracy and socialism. They represent the lowest common denominator. They're a kind of equality or egalitarianism built on what's low in man rather than on what's high in man. He has a hierarchical teaching where you have certain degrees of excellence. And so for all of these and related reasons, Evola's political theory is anti-democratic and anti-socialistic. Next point, he's against both capitalism and communism. Now, you might find that difficult to square. How can that be the case? And I think the idea here is that in both cases, he's against economism. He does not want economic thought to be the driver of social relations. And in capitalism, you end up with...
Lo que se refiere al concepto de demonismo de la economía. Eso también es un factor importante, porque si hablamos de conceptualmente de qué es una civilización, no puede estar reducido a las capacidades económicas, sino a una visión que tenga sobre eso.
Production and consumption of material and spiritual values, as Leo Strauss once put it. And in communism, again, you have a certain sort of leveling that he's opposed to for other reasons. So no democracy, no socialism, we saw that, but also no capitalism, no communism. Third point for Evola is that every true state needs a principle of authority and a transcendent symbol of sovereignty. And in the best case, this is represented by a monarch. So the monarchy is this symbol of transcendent sovereignty. And the monarch should have a certain sort of sacred chrism so that you see him as a kind of transcendental figure, okay? The monarchy is very important for Evola. Fourth point is that the monarchy is compatible with a legal dictatorship, which means that you can have a dictator, but the dictator doesn't take over the state. Like, he doesn't abolish all offices and institutions. He doesn't abolish all laws and constitutions and suddenly make himself the absolute ruling power. He does make himself an absolute ruling power, but only when he's been given the dictatorial powers to deal with a certain sort of emergency. This is a topic that is developed in the works of Carl Schmitt. Evola is referring to it here. There is a certain sort of dictatorship that is compatible with monarchy, and for...
Claro, porque básicamente la dictadura es una institución de la república, en realidad, no de la democracia. No, perdón, de la monarquía. La monarquía no existe, la dictadura, porque precisamente el poder monárquico resuelve con la soberanía absoluta el dilema que pueda tener una república para concentrar ciertas capacidades de decisión en una persona. Pero él establece que para que eso no se transforme en una ocupación o en una tiranía, tiene que ser otorgada de forma legal. Es decir, tiene que ser una dictadura a la vieja usanza romana, en todo caso, la que pueda ser compatible. No las dictaduras modernas, que en realidad son más bien tiranías en términos conceptuales.
Evola, it's very important to make sure that your political theory includes that possibility, allows for it, and accepts it. Okay, fifth point. For Evola, the state is primary. What does that mean? That means the state precedes the nation, precedes the people, precedes society, as he puts it.
El Estado es un ente formativo de la nación y de la sociedad, no al revés. Para Evola, el Estado es un principio trascendente que forma a la nación.
State, and with the state, everything that is properly constituted as political order and political reality, quoting here, is defined essentially on the basis of an idea, not by naturalistic and contract.
Exacto, no es una cuestión contractual, naturalística ni positivista. Es ante todo una idea trascendente que forma al cuerpo vivo.
Factors.
Que
So
le da
your
forma, no quiere decir que lo crea, quiere decir que le da forma.
natural racial, let's say, or natural ethnic or natural national identity does not constitute the important detail. Neither does the contractual element. As he puts it, not a social contract, but relations of loyalty and obedience, of free subordination and honor are the bases of the
Claro, básicamente relaciones jerárquicas naturales son las que, en todo caso, el Estado formaliza.
true state, which does not acknowledge demagoguery and populism. So the state comes first. It's a state-based theory. Others are race-based, others are nation-based, others focus on the people, but Evolus focuses on the state. And the state defined on the basis of an idea. Sixth point, Evola is again.
Eso es una clave fundamental en esta época para el tema de la soberanía. La soberanía no puede estar arraigada solamente en una cuestión territorial, tiene que ser una idea, tiene que ser una civilización la que sustente esa potencia, esa idea, fuerza de soberanía. Por eso es que en esa época tampoco, pero sobre todo hoy, la soberanía no puede estar atada a la mera nación, sino que se tiene que trascender a la idea de nación, si es necesario, para establecer una idea de proyecto, de concepto de civilización.
Against totalitarianism. He supports decentralization. As he puts it.
Exacto. ¿Ves? Antitotalitario y anti... Es precisamente porque es antimoderno, porque se expresa en contra de la centralización política o burocrática típica de la modernidad, en contra de este modelo logístico, en contra de este modelo unitario y centralizador del presupuesto, pero más allá del presupuesto, de la toma de decisiones políticas.
The state is organic and unified without being totalitarian. It allows for the possibility of a large margin of decentralization. Liberty and partial autonomy stand in relation to loyalty and responsibility, according to a precise reciprocity.
Básicamente como podría haber sido el Imperio Alemán, su momento, la Confederación Germánica, las confederaciones como la Suiza, quizá modelos que se parecen un poco más a ese ideal.
So there's freedom. The freedom is coupled with loyalty, and you don't have the smothering, suffocating.
O como tuvimos en Argentina, la Federación en tiempos de Rosas. Perfectamente un modelo tradicional.
Totalitarian state, but you do have an organic and unified state with pockets of decentralization and partial autonomy. It should never be so decentralized and so autonomous that it loses its organic unity. But it shouldn't be so unified that it deprives everybody of liberty and autonomy. That would also be somehow.
Fíjense, no es un modelo que esté a favor de, por una simple vista siempre los típicos motes que se le dan a Ébola es que era totalitario. No, justamente, si algo criticaba de todas las experiencias modernas era el totalitarismo.
Wrong in Evolus political theory. Okay, the next point is that he's against parliamentary democracy. He's against party rule. He wants a corporatist state with high ideals. So you don't have parties, you don't have party politics, you don't have the yappers in parliament. And here, Evola is not alone. There are works like Carl Schmitt's Crisis of Parliamentary Democracy, which also suggests that in a parliament, all people do is talk, 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 and all decisive action is off the table. So that's not right for Evola. No parliamentary democracy, no party rule. The eighth point is that in Evola's political theory of the true state is against majority rule, and it's against one man, one vote. It's not true that everybody, simply by virtue of being a citizen, should have a say, and that everybody's say should be equal. In fact, as he puts it, the majority of a healthy and ordered nation should not be involved in politics. Okay, the ninth point concerns the political party. He says that on one hand, you need a political party for the period of transition. So in order to get to a true state, you're going to do that through the means of a political party. It's a necessary organ for a movement in a period of transition and struggle, but it should not be replaced by a single party once in power. We already saw that he's against party politics. But it should constitute something like an order. This is a new idea here, the order, which will participate in the dignity and authority concentrated in the center, in the figure of the monarch, and assume some of the functions that in earlier traditional regimes belonged to the nobility as a political class in key positions of state. So somehow the party transforms into an order of nobility.
Bueno, esto también se traduce un poco en lo que es la ley de hierro de la oligarquía que ha desarrollado Robert Michels. Es muy interesante porque Robert Michels te muestra que en cualquier sistema político todo tiende a estar manejado, toda estructura política, ya sea de partidos o de organizaciones incluso muy modernas, tienden a estar siempre a manejarse no por la lógica de la masa, aunque sea en el contexto de partidos de masa, sino precisamente en la lógica de los intereses de grupos dirigentes o, como le llamó la ley de hierro, de la oligarquía. Se tienden a oligarquizar las estructuras políticas. Entonces, justamente para garantizar que si eso ocurre de hecho con cualquier sistema político, lo mejor que se puede hacer en todo caso es que eso tenga un marco para que no devenga en los peores intereses del país o en los peores intereses inclusive de la población en general.
10th point, anti-economism. I already said that in relation to communism and capitalism, but here he makes it explicit. Economics should not be the foundational science of politics. And there are other thinkers. I'll give you a quick example. Alexander Dugin, when he writes about liberal democracy, he says the pillars of liberal democracy are economics and jurisprudence. Because in jurisprudence, you have the field for the contestation of human rights. Whereas in Dugin's model, the primacy of economics and jurisprudence are replaced by ethnosociology, geopolitics, theology, and philosophy. So economics and jurisprudence are off to the side. They're matters of the 10th degree of importance. Whereas theology becomes, as I say, so important. Geopolitics becomes important. Ethnosociology becomes important. And philosophy all the more. So Evola as well, anti-economism, it does kind of characterize right-wing anti-liberalism that they contest the debate.
Recomiendo cualquier lectura, inclusive de Marx, si se quiere. Pero a Dugin con cuidado siempre, porque expresa intereses concretos.
Between capitalists and communists, liberals and Democrats, the bourgeoisie and the socialists, in a way that says, look, you both put too much of an emphasis on the economy, and we don't.
Claro, exacto.
11th point, Evola is against class division in the sense that he thinks the trade union movement should be abolished. So you can't have an organic unified state if you have a trade union movement that is always raising kind of class-based claims that introduce conflict and tension and dissension. So he's against trade unions, and he does not want class warfare, and he does not want a class spirit. Now, those of you who have a problem.
De hecho, en esos escritos, por ejemplo, Los hombres y las ruinas, desarrolla lo que es el concepto de lucha de desproletarización del trabajador. Es decir, que el trabajador esté contenido en las unidades de empresa o corporaciones y que incluso pueda progresivamente ganar terreno en ser propietario, incluso accionista de la empresa a la que pertenece, como un medio de lucha para que su interés no vaya por el lado de la lucha de clases, sino de la solidaridad.
Totalitarian inclination, or who are yourselves sympathetic to Marxism, socialism, and trade unionism. Obviously, you're going to hear that and you're going to dislike it, but we're just trying to understand what Evola thinks and why he does. So no trade unions, no class warfare, no class spirit. It should be eliminated. 12th point. In Evola's Science of the True State, or in his Principles of the True State, or Doctrine of the True State, you have, as he puts it, a principle of true justice, which entails denouncing what today is promoted as social justice. Social justice serves only the lowest classes of society, the so-called working classes, and works to the detriment of other classes, effectively leading to injustice. So social justice is sort of the name of the injustice that the lower class commits against the other classes. And Evola believes that there should be a defense of justice. Justice is an important virtue or principle in the teaching of the true state, but it can't be equated to, or it can't be reduced to, it shouldn't be identified with what we have come to know as social justice, since that is a kind of a spirit of class warfare driven by the left. Point 13, the true state will...
Claro, en realidad hay dos formas de referirse al principio de la justicia social, pero sí, el principio de justicia social como se ha expandido en Occidente, obviamente viene del lado de la izquierda y sobre todo en esta época que tiene que ver con la lucha woke y el progresismo, que obviamente no es justicia porque precisamente va contra, no solo contra los principios de dignidad humana de dar justicia, es decir, a cada uno lo que le corresponde, sino que quiere imponer cupos y lo que llama discriminación positiva. Bueno, no se puede estar en contra de la discriminación y decir que apoyar la discriminación positiva, ¿no?
Be hierarchical because it acknowledges and creates respect for the hierarchy of true values. You already saw that it's a state-based teaching where the state looks to the idea. That means that there are some ideas that are higher and some ideas that are lower. There's some values that are higher, some that are lower. Sure. There's a clear sense of rank. Okay, beauty is better than ugliness, truth is better than falsity, excellence is better than degeneracy, and all of these sorts of things.
Bueno, esto es algo que para la cultura de la corrección política es totalmente cancelable, pero es justamente dar vuelta a los valores, que es lo que hicieron justamente lo que hizo el movimiento de izquierda en general.
And so the true state will be hierarchical. It will put some things.
No es solamente el progresismo, porque los escritos de Marx y Einstein ya se planteaba la cuestión de abolir la familia, de oponerse a los valores fundamentales, de dar vuelta a los valores. De hecho, mucho se habla siempre de que la Unión Soviética era un gran baluarte de jerarquía, entonces, bueno, sí, jerarquía es la antijerarquía, porque en realidad servía a lo que es la jerarquía de una autoridad constituida desde la usurpación y de la ocupación de sectores, podríamos decir, resentidos de la sociedad.
Above and some things below. And this is typical of classical teachings. You find it in Plato and Aristotle. For example, the life lived in the pursuit of wisdom is higher than the life lived in pursuit of honor. The life lived in pursuit of honor is in some sense higher than the life that is just dedicated to mere satisfaction of physical pleasures,
Claro.
and so on. So a rank order, a hierarchy, a better and the worse, and therefore the true state will be hierarchical. Point
Sí, como es cualquier Estado, nada más que en este caso se admite abiertamente, sin tapujos y sin cuestiones de moralina política. Es decir, se admite lo que es real, básicamente. Un Estado requiere jerarquía. No sé qué es lo polémico en eso, porque todo Estado requiere jerarquía. Inclusive los que supuestamente se dicen más horizontales, en realidad siempre la toma de decisiones siempre la termina concentrando un grupo y por lo tanto nunca es horizontal. Es una mentira atómica que viene del pluralismo inglés en adelante.
14 is roughly that there will be an atmosphere of the highest possible tension, but not of forced agitation. So it is not an unbent bow. The state and the society, the principles of the true teaching here, they should have kind of tension, readiness, alertness, okay, passionarity, a spiritedness to them. But it shouldn't be kind of like whipped up agitation. So how do you get those two things? You need the real vitality, but not its sort of fake, the fake demagoguery that whips people up into a forced agitation. Okay, so it should be genuinely healthy, taut, okay, like ripe and ready to go. That is part of what, according to Evola, characterizes the atmosphere of life in the context.
Sí, la vida real, con problemas, con situaciones, dinámica, no como una cosa donde supuestamente todo está bien. Sí, perfectamente, en consonancia con la realidad. Tener una sociedad que tensione, pero que no rompa ni se escape por los extremos. Exactamente. O sea, una vida política que sea realmente política, polémica, pero que eso no signifique la ruptura de esa sociedad o una guerra civil, sino que la contenga. Perfectamente, términos de Schmitt.
Of the true state. And finally, interestingly, he says there will not be an intrusion of what is public into the field of private life, but rather great freedom and great responsibility. So in the earlier section,
Claro, no hay un refuerzo de vigilar y castigar como la modernidad, sino que generalmente las cuestiones públicas son públicas, las cuestiones privadas son privadas. Eso es la concepción tradicional.
where he said that it's going to be an organic, unified state, but not a totalitarian state, he's saying a similar thing. Okay, there will not be an intrusion of what is public into the field of private life, meaning you will have partial autonomy, little pockets of liberty, and some area where you can exercise both freedom and
Sí, lo que es del Estado, lo que es de la comunidad.
responsibility. In contrast, Evola believes there are states that have tried to destroy the realm of private life,
Sí.
its privacy, its dignity, its freedom, and its responsibility. In his view, that is just incorrect. That is the wrong thing to do. And any state that's totalitarian
Si querés justamente fomentar una autoridad, un sistema de jerarquías orgánico, real, necesitas fomentar precisamente la libertad, porque la jerarquía no se concibe sin libertad, porque justamente el que se subordina tiene que también tener la libertad de tomar la mejor decisión para seguir lo que se le dice y al mismo tiempo después de arrojarse para conseguir nuevas cosas. Entonces, hay una relación ahí que no tiene que ver con jerarquía está en contra de la libertad. No, es al revés. Una jerarquía es básica para que vos seas un individuo completo, indivisible, y que por lo tanto puedas después tomar las mejores decisiones.
in that respect is not following the principles of the true state. Okay, interestingly enough, in Plato's Laws, the main character says that there should be intrusion of what is public into the field of private life for a reason I want to give very quickly, which is that if you're a statesman or a legislator, you're concerned with the moral character and quality and habits of the people. And in many cases, those are formed in private. So you can't just leave everything private unattended to because it has political significance to the extent that it impacts the character of the people. And as a statesman or legislator, the character of the people becomes a matter of great importance because if they're fat, lazy cows, then you're going to get invaded by another country and it's going to destroy you. If they are, self-seeking, a little greedy bloodsuckers, then that's going to be something else altogether. If there's no spirit of camaraderie, of fraternity, of solidarity, if there's no sense of shared pleasures and pains, at least if there's no hardness to go into military battle for the sake of your country, then again, from the point of view of the statesman or legislator, you kind of have failed in your task of producing citizens who are adequate to the task of citizenship, to its demands. All right, but for Evola, that's again at the level of the ideal principles, for example, in Plato's Laws. Okay, they don't actually have a police officer in every bedroom making sure that you are sleeping, on the right side of the bed, listening to the right music, copulating in the right way. Although they probably would if they could. So for Evola, no intrusion of what is public into the field of private life. Great freedom, great responsibility. So we've just gone through 15 points here that Evola presents.
Bueno, esos eran los puntos, me parecieron interesantes para un poco rendirle un homenaje a Ébola. También para limpiar un poco su nombre de todo lo que se ha dicho de él, sobre todo asociándolo con pensamientos totalitarios, cuando en realidad justamente si él criticaba los totalitarismos del siglo XX, ha sido por eso. Porque no es que no los criticaba por lo que le faltaba de modernidad, los criticaba precisamente por modernos. Y eso me parece que es algo interesante, que muchas veces asociamos lo moderno con lo libre, y justamente lo que te muestra Ébola es que es todo lo contrario. Entonces, a mí me parece interesante incluso desligar esos conceptos a veces que se tiene de soberanía, libertad, que no son conceptos que vienen del liberalismo, son conceptos que vienen de antes, que el liberalismo en todo caso se los apropia a partir del paradigma de la Revolución Francesa. Pero bueno, eso quería hacer. Quería darle este pequeño homenaje a Ébola, repasando algunos de sus puntos de lo que es el pensamiento político del Estado para Ébola, que es algo que no se suele tocar. Generalmente se toca cuál es el Estado en el fascismo, en el liberalismo, en el socialismo marxista o no, pero me pareció interesante tocar esta óptica para cerrar este directo. Y bueno, agradecerles por haber estado ahí, a los que estuvieron ahí presentes. Y bueno, nos vemos en todo caso el miércoles que viene. Lo dejo con una última cita antes de irme. Y bueno, nos veremos la próxima.
The radical have Be radical, have principles, be absolute, be that which the bourgeoisie calls an extremist. Give yourself without counting or calculating. Don't accept what they call the reality of life, and act in such a way that you won't be accepted by that kind of life. Never abandon the principle of struggle.